Hi, I'm a father and an architect with kids here in the Hermosa Beach school system. Actually, we're in Manhattan Beach, but it's the community just to the south of here. And Hermosa Beach are there any people out here with kids in Hermosa schools? I see a couple. So you know that we're in some trouble. We've got committees that are right now looking at charterization, at parcel tax, at merging, and also the prospect that we might have to go on minimal programs. We've already lost some of those programs now, and there's this notion that we might be losing more. It's a really scary potential reality. So this notion of no more teachers and no more books is very real in Hermosa Beach. As an architect engaged in an education practice where we're researching how kids learn, we're looking at a different paradigm where every person can possibly be an educator or a facilitator for learning, and every space could potentially be a classroom. In this example of the KIPP charter schools, knowledge is power provider, we look at this large social space, which is a cafeteria and an auditorium, and they've actually called it a cafetorium, which is the space where the mission and the brand of the school is really expressed, and it helps inspire the kids in terms of their learning. So again, taking a look at how kids will spend their day, their typical school day, we found that they're going to be engaged in 4 different learning modes or activities: socializing, focusing, creating, and collaborating. And these activities or learning modes can occur in both formal and informal learning environments. Now, we all remember, if we close our eyes, what the typical classroom looks like. You think of the desks, the teacher in the front of the room, a door to the side, maybe some windows. This is a newer example right here. But what's interesting is the potential in the informal learning environments. So when you think of this notion of socializing, the idea that the space can encourage interaction that creates common bonds, collective identity, lasting friendships, and trust. You know, socialization can occur either at a very intimate level or in a larger space that can inspire through daylighting and views and comfort. The notion of focus is something that goes back a long way in terms of education. You think of reading and studying and listening very carefully to what the teacher has to say. It's still very important. And we also know that there's a new type of focus which involves interfacing with a computer screen or an iPad. Collaboration is very much like the other learning modes in that how can a space potentially encourage very natural random interaction in some of the in-between spaces. And when I say in-between spaces, I'm thinking about courtyards or stairways or hallways or a space that might be, at the common entry of a learning facility. Collaboration spaces are spaces that allow students to exchange ideas and work as a group to achieve a common goal. And daylighting, acoustics, and even environmental graphics can be a very strong part of what create that space and make it a successful collaboration space. As an architect, the last learning mode, which I get very excited about, is the create, or this idea that in school, kids are creating, and the environment needs to provide opportunities for that. So these are spaces that promote right brain learning, built environments that inspire curiosity, wonder, experimentation, and self-expression. So whether it's just the simple notion of putting a whiteboard or a chalkboard in a corridor with some seating around it that encourages informal interaction, or even a performance nook where kids can actually perform in a very informal setting, this notion of creating is a very important aspect of the learning environment. When you think of informal learning spaces, you think of how can environmental graphics help inspire that notion of wonder and curiosity about a place. And we try to incorporate this into all of our projects that we do. It's a great opportunity, it's very inexpensive, but it really can inspire that learning that needs to occur around those 4 different learning modes. In this particular example, Biola University School of Theology, we conceptualize the idea of what we call a scripture window, where it's visible from the exterior. You can see something that's incorporated into the architectural window, some type of a graphic. It's actually scripture from the Bible, But when you get into the space, it's just a space off of a corridor. There's some seating around it, and when the light comes in, the scripture reflects on the wall and provides a really neat opportunity for contemplation and for allowing some of those learning modes to occur. But the learning environment should not only be confined to the traditional learning institution like a school. There's also lots of opportunities looking to the local community or even to business in terms of private-public partnerships. So this is an example of MLab, which is a partnership that we worked with Motorola in designing a space that was really conceived to be both an education and an entertainment environment in Wanadu City, Florida. And in this particular example, MLab exposes kids to innovation in a career-focused learning environment where they can actually experiment with the technology in a video game, an interactive video game that creates different types of virtual environments through the windows outside. The last example I want to show is the work that we're doing with New Line Academy in South Maidstone, England. In this example, very early on in the design phase, we took a look at the metaphor of a campground and how that could be used to create a non-traditional learning space. So we set up spaces within that, like a cave, which might have focus work that's occurring in there, focused learning, a watering hole, which might inspire kids to collaborate on more of an informal basis, as well as a campfire, which is really meant to be a place for socializing and creating. And the environmental graphics, again, were conceived to really support those learning modes and reinforce the ideas. What came of this project is actually being implemented throughout all of the schools in Kent County, England, and essentially what emerged was what we call a learning plaza. And we've incorporated things like mobile lecture seating, flexible furniture, biometric lighting, which actually sets the mood and changes the mood in the space. This notion of putting furniture on wheels is very interesting because it actually allows the learning environment to adapt to the particular learning mode that's occurring in the space. So the example that you see here on the screen is mobile lecture seating, which might be focused towards an audience or a group giving a lecture, while on the other side it could create a pin-up surface for kids to collaborate or focus. 360-degree technology and projection allows for the technology to be implemented in, and really the model for this is self-directed learning so that the kids and the teachers can actually shape the learning environment. So we don't know what the state of learning is going to be here in California, given the budget problems, and certainly don't know what's going to become of Hermosa Beach. But the one thing that we're looking at as architects is ways that the built environment can actually transform learning. And what we're finding is that the way people learn is actually transforming the built environment. Thank you very much.